Okay, everyone. Is this loud enough? Hi, welcome. Welcome, everyone. Trust you all have enough coffee inside you coursing through the veins. We've invested this year in a barista just to make sure that caffeine levels are sufficient, so please make use of that. Hey, today, Dynamics Day is 7 years old, so it's our 7th birthday. We're very pleased about that. And I want to thank everyone for making the investment, an investment in time and to come down here out of your busy lives to see all about Dynamics. We've had an immense registrations this year. I'm really pleased. We've had 318 registrations, which is the most we've ever had. I want to thank everyone for coming across Aotearoa. So we've had people from New Plymouth, Palmerston North, Nelson, Christchurch, Dunedin, Invercargill, Wellington, and of course those who have battled through the Auckland infrastructure to get here. We hear that there are 50-minute delays both sides of the CBD. So yes, I suspect that everyone in this room has probably flown up here today. What I want to do, quick question and show of hands, I guess. Who's been here for all 7? Not Antigen people. God, there's always one, isn't there? So, whilst this is our 7th, the precursor to this were a bunch of user groups. And there's one person in the audience that has played a significant role in all of our events. And I want to make a particular mention of Mason Robinson. He's attended all of these. He's has been a real strong supporter of all of our user groups and a driving force behind getting NAV users together, including a legendary trip to Hamner Springs in 2008. He's also the driving force behind box biting competitions. I have no idea what that is, but Mason will be able to answer that later on this evening. He moonlights as in the Air Force Band. He plays the bugle at Anzac Day parades, which is fantastic. And Mason has been at every Dynamics Day and every user group. So I just want to thank him so much for his commitment to all of things and sharing information. Mason, I've got a little bottle of something for you. If you could just pop up. Where is the good man? Where are you? Let's see you come in. There you are. Good man. Round of applause, Mason. Thank you. Looks like some good stuff as well. Good morning, buddy. Thank you. I suspect the events have changed a little bit since the first lot, Mason. So we've got a packed agenda this year. As we always do, we try to pack in more and more content. So we're going to start off with the shape of Antigen and look at some of the announcements that have occurred recently in the marketplace and what that means to you. We are then going to explore the conference theme being from systems of engagement to intelligence, and try to understand and unpick what on earth that all means. And we're delighted with the continued support from Microsoft. So again, the Microsoft leadership will be here to explain where they're going, their Microsoft strategy, and what this again means to the market and the investments that they're throwing into their business solutions. And throughout the year, we've been really lucky to work with you on some absolutely fantastic projects. But there's one in particular that we want to showcase and one that we want to lift out that is a shining example of engaging and intelligent systems. Not only that it's actually using insane amount of volumes, which we'd like to sort of share with you and understand how that organization is getting value out of their investment in Dynamics. Now, in terms of people at Dynamics Day, we've got about 40 Antigenites here, so this is an ideal opportunity for you to grab a specialist, not in the biblical sense, but grab someone, and if you will have a question, please do ask us. We're all running around in these black shirts with DD15, so we've got our ID mark on us. It's that side. And we also have 9 members of the Antigen leadership team here. And 8 members of the Microsoft team. So do reach out and make that opportunity to connect. So let's kick off with an update on Antigen business. Please join me to welcome Simon Bright, CEO of Antigen.
Thanks, James.
Thanks, Simon.
Awesome. Wow, it's a great turnout as normal. It's great to see so many people here. As James said, I think that we've got some challenges on the motorways at the moment that might see a few people come in late. But I wanted to thank you all again for turning up today. This is the first and the only time that I'm going to get to talk today, so I'm going to deviate a little bit from the agenda and just take the opportunity to thank a bunch of people. I wanted to in particular thank James for organising this whole thing with his team, and when I say his team I mean our extended Dynamics group, but also our events and marketing team. I think they've done a pretty good job. Normally I'd do that at the end, but I don't think James is going to let me come back up. So what I did want to do today though is do a bit of a business update. So on the 21st of October 2014, so in effect the day that we stood up here last year, I announced that Antigen was about to be acquired by Empire. At that time I made some suppositions in terms of what that might mean to our business, and the first thing that I said, it would have no visible change to our structure and the way that we operated within this market. And I guess I'm somewhat pleased to stand here and say I believe that has been the case. We have the same operating structure in place, we have the same leadership team in place, and in essence we've been left to operate to our own fruition. So I'm pleased to say that that's happened. The other thing that I said would happen is that it would give you as our customers greater access to a larger pool of people and a larger pool of capability. And I think we've done a small amount of that. So, you know, we would suggest that, as I did 12 months ago, that within the Empire Group, we've got an amazing talent around managed services and infrastructure management that we don't necessarily have within our own Antigen business. We've been slowly bringing some of that capability into New Zealand, and we'll continue to do that over the next 12 months. We've leveraged a huge amount of the ITSM, or IT Service Management capability, out of Empire to help us with processes and systems. So again, that's been of real value to us over that period. So I think the story I really wanted to portray is that we're still operating as Antigen, we're still yellow, and I guess, you know, the funny thing for me is that whenever I talked about the acquisition, the first question I would always get asked is, are we going to stay as Antigen and is it going to stay yellow? So with the help of a few of our team, and I will take credit for part of this, and I'll give part of this credit to Mike Morgan, who is based over in Sydney, and Tamsin from our design team. Empire has now adopted the yellow colour. So in fact, yellow has spread across the Tasman and it's been infectious. So you know, we're pretty pleased to see that occur. So what I wanted to do was to give you a bit of a sense of what our business looks like today. So what you've got on the screen is a whole bunch of statistics. Really where I wanted to start is our business is about people. We deliver services to each of you in the room, and we're very proud of the talent that we have within our business. Some of that gets reflected by as achieving MVP, or most valuable professional status, with a number of our people. Some of those guys are in the room today, so I think you're going to hear from Steve Foster, you're going to hear from Dylan Haskins, and you're certainly going to hear from Chris Auld. So it's great to have 3 of the 6 MVPs in the room to work with you today. Our business has always talked about being local and responsive. As you can see, we're across 4 major centres within New Zealand, but probably the story that you don't hear so much about is our Seattle business. So Chris is here today, as I mentioned. Chris is heading up our Seattle business now. That business has grown to 25 people. So what do we do up there? A lot of what we do, we refer to it as our innovation hub. So it is a lot about doing work directly for Microsoft on new technology and new innovation that we can ultimately bring back and help work with you guys. So it's always given us that sort of one foot in the future. From a scale perspective, we're about 350 people across Antigen now, and it's about a $60 million business. Why is that important for you? Again, you know, when I think about credibility in the marketplace, sustainability, those things are important in terms of making sure we're here to work with you guys on an ongoing basis. So if we overlay the Empire business across that, what kind of scale are we getting to? So if you don't know about Empire, Empire is a publicly listed company on the Australian Securities Exchange. It has a market cap of just over 99 million. So it's a very strong player in the IT services space. We in New Zealand and within Antigen have maintained our focus on Microsoft, and Empire maintains that same focus. So across the Australasian market, we would be one, if not the largest dedicated Microsoft services provider. With Empire, we extend ourselves into 12 locations, 920 people, and you can see the revenues on the slide there. So again, it's just that level of scale that we can bring to the table in the conversations that we're having with each of you. And if you look at the group, we've got I would argue we've got 175 people dedicated to providing Dynamics solutions and working with you guys on a day-to-day basis. James would argue that we've got 920 people, because the story that he's going to talk about today is how Dynamics spans across the entire Microsoft platform and how the interconnectivity of those systems is important to each of you. Where I wanted to land really today is talking a little bit about again, if I sort of refer back to the conversations that we had on this stage last year and some of the things that I talked about, a lot of what you guys are coming to us with is a desire to get extracting the value from the investments that you're making in technology and have those investments basically being realized in a much faster frame. Last year we talked about the concept of rapid prototyping, so basically taking small steps but incremental gains with your technology. We talked a lot about making sure that the solutions that you're adopting were as close to out of the box as they possibly can, again giving you that fast track moving forward. And we also talked a lot about making sure that they were aligned to the industries that each of you worked in. So if we make those kind of observations or realizations in terms of that's where the market sits, we need to make sure we're evolving our business to fit. And we talk about consumable solutions. So by nature of working in the Microsoft space, we find ourselves working with solutions that are naturally in that consumable type environment, i.e. they are able to be consumed, they're cloud solutions, we can access them as a service. Right, so that's natural for us being in the space. But it's our obligation to extend that. And we extend that through taking those solutions and adding IP to them to make them of more value in this marketplace. We've done a number of those things over the last 12 months. So I imagine that a number of you have worked with our Dynamics accelerators. I doubt that so many of you have worked with our Cohesion product. But Cohesion is a really good example of where we've been able to take IP to the market for the gain of our clients. So Cohesion is a fully as a service solution. It's made available to government agencies, and its role in life basically is allowing those agencies to communicate, to collaborate, and to comply with their records management requirements. We have over 4,000 users on that platform now, and those 4,000 users have joined that platform in this given year. So what we've got is an absolute example of matching the right IP and industry solution set to the requirements of the market and making it easily deployable. We want to do more of that, and I'm sure you want us to do more of that. And in fact, you're going to hear from the team in terms of some announcements later, which I won't steal their thunder on. From a how we deliver perspective, so if that is the case, if the technology solutions are changing, so does our delivery model. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in a moment, as well as talking a little bit more about the services, the licensing models that sit around that, and making sure that they are aligned to the way that we are delivering. Whoops. Okay. So this slide really is just to look at, if that is the case, if we've got all of these solutions, we are lucky, as I said, as a Microsoft provider, that by nature, Microsoft provides a whole bunch of the suite for us. You can see that it's delivered through Microsoft Dynamics, it's delivered through Office 365, and it's delivered on the Azure platform. So if we think about our services portfolio, this is what our services portfolio forms today. The key thing for us is extending that portfolio to make it really, really applicable to the market. And I know that James is going to talk a lot to this theme as we move forward. So really what I wanted to jump to is thinking about, from a delivery perspective, how we actually enable that. So again, if I think about the conversations that we've had over time and the nature of the services that we need to provide. So the classic sort of big, long-run delivery project doesn't tend to exist anymore. Really what you're looking for is to realise that value much faster. So our services need to be aligned to that. They need to be continuous. They need to be available to you at any time. They need to move from that sort of reactive to that proactive type phase. They need to be planned not just on our part but on your part as well. You need to understand what's happening in your business and what those phases might look like. So today we've got 37 clients engaging with us in a very different form through what we call Antigen Lifecycle Services. And basically what that's doing is pulling down on a whole suite of services that can be planned 12, 24, 36 months into the future. So that we've got a much more consistent way of engaging and delivering that value. So we think that's changing our business. It's changing. It's putting some different pressures on us in terms of how we plan people into projects, how we plan people into activities, how those people get engaged into our various clients. But it's an exciting change to the way that we're working. And the final thing that I was really going to talk about is if we have the right solution set, we have the right mechanism by which we're working together, we need a licensing model that supports that. And I'm pleased to announce that on the 2nd of October, Antigen was appointed as a Tier 1 cloud solutions provider in New Zealand. So what that means is that we have, for our first time in our history, we have the ability to work with you from a licensing perspective. So the way that I think about this is it allows us basically to simplify the engagement that you have with your technology providers. It allows us to be the direct provider of the software, which means you can receive software, services and solutions on one single invoice. That is a big, big change for us, and we'll talk more about that not only today but over the coming months and what that means to each of you as our clients. So I really wanted to end or culminate, I guess, with a bit of a view of where our year has gone and I guess how we feel about the business at this point in time. We've had an exceptional year. It's been great fun working with each of you, and we really appreciate the fact that we've been recognised in the marketplace for some of the things that we've been doing. So first up, we were announced as the Microsoft Country Partner of the Year, which is a fantastic accolade for us. It's great for me because I get to go to a conference and pick up a nice award. However, in saying that, I think Emma actually picked up the award on my behalf. But it was a great opportunity to be involved and recognised at that event. We were recognised as a brand in the Preferred Supplier Program, so the Brand Value Award. So this is the work that we do directly for Microsoft. So it's being recognised in terms of the value that we're adding to Microsoft Corporation as opposed to necessarily the value that we add to our clients. We won the CRM and ERP award with Microsoft this year. That's an unprecedented situation to win both of those awards in any given year. So it really validates the work that we're doing. And finally, we secured the Platinum Partner Club for Asia Pacific, which again is about credibility in this market. So as I say, we've had a fantastic year. We're really looking forward to the opportunity to engage with each of you today. There are some new bits to the conference, as James has pointed out. There's a whole expert area outside, so please make sure you engage with those things. But I'd like to thank you all for turning up and look forward to spending some time with you today.
Thanks, Simon. Okay. So in thinking about the theme, we came up with a theme called From Systems of Engagement to Intelligence. And we wanted to focus on a key change we're seeing in the marketplace, which in essence is a paradigm shift in organizations' view of productivity. where really systems need to play their part in engaging but intelligently enhancing users' lives. Quite clearly, our workplace is changing. I remember many years ago sitting in an office quite similar to this. Our expectations have certainly changed, and to survive in this heavily complex and competitive landscape, organizations must adapt. The pace of information access and decision-making is unprecedented, and the pace of that seems to be showing no signs of slowing. And there are many things that are actually driving this change. I'd say not least of all the ultra-competitive global landscapes, the accessibility of consumer choices across a load of global channels, the need to compete against low-wage economies on our back doorstep, or in the increasingly intelligent consumer with instant access to information. This has driven a new awareness. But what I want to do is to focus on the selfie generation. Just for a minute, not to pick on them per se, but more just to celebrate really the technology that they so embrace. And we must remember with the selfie generation that in fact these guys are the new workforce and the new consumers of today and tomorrow. Some of us may well say that, that they haven't lived. And true, they haven't lived. They haven't lived in a world without instant access to information. They haven't lived in a world without apps to plan and entertain their lives. And they haven't lived in a world where functions are disconnected and required people to make those connections. And they haven't lived in a world where we had internet dial tones. Everyone remember them? It's interesting, I got interviewed by my daughter the other week for her homework, and it was a little bit worrying. She needed to interview old people, which was a worry in itself. But what she did, she couldn't get contact with Granny and Granddad, so next on the hit list was me. So her questions seemed reasonably sensible. First question, where did you live when you were a kid, Dad? Okay. Next question, what were TVs like, Dad, back then? What did you watch? She was aghast that I had black and white TV. The next one was, did you have electricity? Really? Not that old. The last one, what were iPhones like, Dad? And I think that sort of really drove home. They've not lived without this tether of information to their palm. And whilst that's fantastic, not all is not lost. The teen millennials may well be a little bit unfocused, might be a little bit naive to the world around them, but what they do bring is a completely different level of understanding of how to collaborate, how to focus and think on problem solving. Crowdsourcing is something that they would just think natural. They are born of a world where constant state of interruption, which I know probably annoys the hell out of all of us with little pop-ups and link messages and so on and so forth. But they're born of a world where constant state of interruption is the norm. Their expectation of the workforce and workplace is forcing us to challenge the norms, and also forcing us to think about how we solve things differently and how we engage customers differently and provide timely services and products to our clients. So they're also born of a world where they'd seen these stats to be completely crazy. They don't understand why we'd spend 16 hours a week on paperwork where there should be an app for that. And they don't understand, because they've been born of a world where you can spell things incorrectly, and a search tool will still find your lost document, rather than us spending 30% of our time looking for documents through an unstructured file location or a complex system. They're also born of a world where 50% of their working life is actually sharing, collaborating across social media. They might spend a little bit too much time on Instagram and Facebook, but rather than searching, gathering, and duplicating information, they're sharing. And they're certainly part of the community that says 70% of people saying, get me mobile. So this is an always connected, always on world. Productivity used to mean optimizing the supply chain or optimizing the production processes to get the most out of, most throughput through the existing productive assets. But there's a paradigm shift in the way organizations are thinking about productivity. Productivity is pervasive. And what I mean by that is that we can't just have lean operations within the organization and the shop floor, but have manual purchase order books or information locked away in unstructured and difficult, there's a couple of people nodding, and information locked away in file stores that just are unintuitive. We're probably not hitting our straps around productivity if that's still the case. Our expectation around the pace of access of information has really exploded. And I'm sure that you'd share the frustrations. If you can't find information on the web, you just move on to the next site, the next sales site, and you're lost as a customer forever. Every system, organization, person, and process is having to adapt. And deliver productivity gains and the speed of access of information, every system, every process, organization is then having to become truly connected, not this loosely coupled together a mythical unicorn called integration. And systems are having to adapt too. So I grew up in an era of Xenix, where SCO-Xenix and SCO-Unix, where we used to have these endless list reports, which meant that finally your end-of-month rollover was complete and successful. A couple of you probably remember that. To this, where intelligent systems monitor, guide users to the information that you need for your next task. And to this, where contextual information dashboards are tailored to me, to my role, driving me to make swift and intelligent decisions through an engaging portal. Now, what's interesting here is that, whilst I still think it's the two most important parts, the two parts of the jigsaw puzzle here, there's only two of them are dynamics. So, what's important here is to try to drive true productivity. One needs to be able to leverage the entire piece to become truly engaging. And Microsoft are in a unique position. They are the only vendor in the marketplace to deliver best-in-class productivity tools, those that you use every day, Outlook, Excel, and so on and so forth, with market-leading business applications, all on one platform. In fact, they are the only platform player. And now we talk of market-leading systems of intelligent layers with services available like Azure services, Azure machine learning, data insights, mobility, and so on and so forth. And what this is creating Microsoft engaging systems are actually becoming the intelligent cloud. Our business has to transform itself, and to help us engage and create engaging and intelligent solutions for you, our clients across the full Microsoft stack, we need to have cloud management as central to everything that we deliver. I'm really excited actually about the content this year, because I think that'll show how we can extract all of the value that you get across the stack. And when we were thinking about Dynamics Day, we actually should be calling it Microsoft Day, because it's so important to understand the whole. And I think it's very true that the sum of the whole is indeed greater than the sum of the parts. And I think the evidence of our transformation is around this cloud solution provider platform that we're working on. So I'm really pleased to announce today we've got a new offer around Dynamics CSP, it's called. We're very good at three-letter acronyms in this industry, so we've got a new one. It's called CSP. And And what we're doing is we're delivering dynamic outcomes via the connected cloud. So what this is a focused solution for a fixed monthly fee incorporating full support, unlimited training, and managed upgrades. So for a specific pricing for Dynamics Day-to-Day, we are looking at a flat $225 per user per month to deliver advanced marketing automation. So we've basically packaged up a whole host of capability, bringing different vendors into a single framework, creating and delivering unlimited ongoing training, automated upgrades, software and services all into a single bill, as Simon alluded to earlier. So, yeah, we've been busy, and I guess we've tried to transform ourselves. And what we'd like to do now is to look at what the trends in the business, in the broader world is doing in terms of how this is transforming Microsoft. So with that, I think it's a time to look beyond our shores and hear what's driving the Microsoft vision. So I would like to say and join me in welcoming Fraser Scott. He's the Director of Marketing Operations for Microsoft New Zealand, a 12-year veteran, I believe. Fraser. Thanks, Fraser.
Cheers, mate. Well, thank you. Kia ora, good morning. James has done an absolutely fantastic job of outlining, I guess, really the conversation I want to have with you today over the next few minutes. But perhaps, and in the parlance of Microsoft, we'll double-click and go just a little bit deeper below the layers that we see in some of these trends and how they're impacting the workforce today. One thing I would like to say, though, is, James, we prefer to call the selfie generation the millennial generation. We think it's a little bit kinder than hammering on them. So today I want to talk a little bit about what's driving all this tech and innovation right now, how Microsoft's responding. We're also going to touch a little bit on the Internet of Things and systems of intelligence. I think James did a fantastic job of explaining the systems of intelligence, and often with both of those ideas, systems of intelligence and Internet of Things, there can be multiple meanings and nuance within that. So I'll have a view. I know Chris is coming up later and he'll probably go a lot deeper into that as well. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about empowering, and that's certainly a part of Microsoft's mission and vision right now. I'm sorry, this thing's in the way, isn't it? I'll try and step forward. So let's jump on into it. Some of this you will know, some of this may be interesting and new for you. But our position starts with this, that we live in a world of infinite devices, infinite data and applications, new and evolving all the time. We create more data than we can ever consume. You already know this to be fact. And the pace of this change is only ever increasing. Technology is disrupting our personal lives, it is disrupting our professional lives, and at the same time it is enabling virtuously that disruption. So we say Microsoft's view is the world has changed. These trends that we talk about, you know, Internet of Things, virtualization, social mobile, all these things used to be pillars, but it's their combined effect which is driving this great change. So we need to think about how, as businesses, we can all remain successful and productive, as individuals, as organisations, as we face this disruption. Whether it's disruptions to a business model, think about how Uber disrupts taxis, that's probably the most commonly stated one. Whether it's how we face up to the world of increasing cybercrime, how we face new apps, new devices, and yes, how we think about the way that millennials are impacting the modern workplace. So if you need to try and understand what's at stake here, if we take this rough statistic, if you were going to go back to 1955 and look at the list of the Fortune 500 companies, how many of them would still be here today and how many of them would be gone? 88% of them are gone. In 1955, the life expectancy of a Fortune 500 company was 75 years. Today it's 15 years and declining. So what is driving this change? And I think Jack Welch states it the best, is if the rate of change on the outside exceeds the rate of change inside, that the end is very much near. So what's happening? Well, we see this. The world is now a network. And I don't mean internet connected as such, because we all network, whether it's business, social, sports, whether it's our business models. And right now, most of us in this room are probably connected through our smartphone to a multitude of apps. I even actually looked online before to see how bad the traffic really was. You know, that's a network that's been connected all the time. And our business networks were always connected as well. When we think about ERP systems, very much get a box in, ship a box out, build customer. That's kind of what they were. Today it's bringing together all different levels of intelligence, and it's also now interfacing into the customer, whether it's web, apps and portals, and how we're connecting those two worlds. From a personal perspective, 10 years ago we didn't have Facebook and Twitter, we didn't have LinkedIn, but today these are the ways we connect with friends and businesses, the way that we find new jobs or maybe recruit talent. Or if you're like me, it's how you find out on the news. Follow Twitter. I don't look at news sites much anymore. That's my connection to that network. And if you think about it, the reference I made earlier about Uber, they are a network. If you use Uber, you are networked in with them. That is the reality. So what I would say, though, is that work has not followed that pace of change that we do personally. So there's a bit of dissonance there. And the great way of explaining that is, if we think we connect and collaborate through Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook, but yet at work, how many of us still attach a PowerPoint or an Excel and send it via email? That's not the way that we should be working today. And when we think about the millennials in our workplace, Yammer is far more natural for them than any of these antiquated systems are to use. So when we think about the shift from moving from old world to new world, what does that look like? And here's just a handful of examples, I think, to describe it. And in my marketing role, this first one is absolutely apparent to me all the time. We've moved away from having customers to brand ambassadors. The old marketing mantra was, your brand is whatever you tell your customers. Well, that's completely flipped on its head. Our brand is now what our customers tell us it is. Customers used to be passive recipients of information. A company would make a product and then tell customers what they should think about it. Now customers are telling us which products to build to meet their needs. Static hierarchies, and if you think about the way the old command and conquer controls of organisations, CEOs, pillars, divisions and everything, think about the military. That's a hangover from the industrial age. It drove efficiency and it drove control. Now, we're far more agile, dynamic networks form, and at the ultimate extreme, we're talking about groups of people coming together, it's called the Hollywood model, to work on a project, build a product, and then disbanding with an organisation. And that's not what we call a stretch assignment where you have to do your old job and your new job, you just do that. And that's the other end of dynamic networks. I think we all understand going from a situation of scarce information where you could find nothing to having, you know, this massive amount of data now, but then how do you drill into that to get accessible insights? The expression that we use is big data, although talking to a customer of ours, they say, Fraser, we don't have big data, we've just got really inconveniently sized data. So how do you get through that? How do you get to the jewels of information that's in that? Obviously, search and structured document management is a great way to do that, but that's the move we're seeing. And siloed productivity moving into collective value creation. And I think about that from being me-centric to we-centric. Combining, collaborating in real time on building products, building workflow, etc. And the reality I mentioned about Yammer before, the millennials coming through today, email and texting and everything is not common. WhatsApp, Snapchat, that's the platform they would choose to collaborate on going forward. And then moving from transactional systems to systems of intelligence, as James outlined as well. That's really synergy at its heart. It's bringing together everything that you know inside your organisation, but at its extreme, it's also connected into the customer world as well. And moving from security in the server room to security in the boardroom. Security use of data was always something that perhaps a CIO, and if you're a CIO in the room, you understand this transition. Now in a connected cloud world, it has to be the role of the board to be really concerned about this. We've seen the number of leaks, health leaks, government agencies. It's bad enough if a government does it, but if a business does it, they can go because the brand erosion and the trust in that product is gone. It's a massive transformation. How I'd summarise this real-time, mobile-first, cloud-first world, if organisations are sticking at the old and not moving to the new, best case, it's inefficient. At its worst case, it's irrelevancy in the market. So Microsoft, under our new CEO, Satya Nadella, we say new, he's probably coming up 2 years in a role now, we've been undergoing a massive transformation. And all of those things that you just saw are what really is at the heart of our business. And we've done some crazy things, and probably an incorrect expression giving such as heritage, but he's been slaying a lot of, cows. You can fill in the gap on that one. We released Office on the iPad weeks after he came into role, and for a lot of people for a long time, that had been a property that Microsoft had fiercely defended on the Windows ecosystem. And that has been for a long time one of the most downloaded applications on the iOS platform. And we've moved to this world of Windows 10, ubiquitous across all platforms, from Raspberry Pi and Internet of Things, right up to large-scale screens and systems, which we'll show you in a moment. Consistent universal experience across different devices. And he's really focused the business around these three things. And he says this, and I completely agree with it. We are the only company that cares deeply about both individuals, think consumer, and organizations, bringing them together to achieve more. And we're the only company that cares deeply around taking the technology that we have and making it available to everyone on the globe. And so when we think about people, industries, and organizations, our mission statement very clearly is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. That's a pretty bold statement, and a pretty arrogant statement in some ways as well. But then so was, back in time, putting a PC on every desktop in every office. That was seen as pretty out there, and how could you go about it? But that is what's driving Microsoft today. And it drives us on three pillars, which I'll go into deeply in a moment. We focus this story around how do we create more personal computing? How do we build the intelligent cloud that enables us to reinvent productivity and business processes? So let's dig into each of those pillars a little bit more now. So under creating more personal computing, we talk a lot about mobility. Now, mobility is not a device-centric statement. Mobility is about the mobility of the human experience, having what you want wherever you are at whatever time it is. And so you'll see a range of devices that we bring to the market to do this. Underpinning this is the Windows ecosystem. This whole statement here is all running and powered by Windows. Microsoft announced the Surface a few years ago. It was met with a lot of surprise, and we actually had a pretty tough year that first year. If some of you may remember, we took a massive write-down on the first version of it. But we came back better and stronger with the Surface 2 and then the Surface 3. And the Pro 3 is the device which graces a lot of C-suite desktops today. And after much disparaging comment from our competitors in the industry, namely Apple, they've now come out with a version of their own called the iPad Pro in response to the success that we've had with the Surface 3. What we showed you there is the Surface Book. When it was released 3 weeks ago, the IT and tech commentators were absolutely gobsmacked. They've had a play with it, and it's getting rave reviews already. And one of the favourite, and I'll show you a few more products from that release as well, but one of my favourite tweets that came out of a tech journalist was, I think I just went to the Apple 2017 launch event. So Microsoft has changed from being the laggard in a lot of this world to actually being a thought leader in how we approach not just the cloud and our applications, but also into a design point of hardware as well. Windows 10, of course, we launched in July. I think we've announced that 3 weeks ago that we're now past 110 million users, downloads and using the operating system. One about more personal computing, the idea that just your face or your iris or your fingerprint can be your password. And for those of you who have run help desks, you know one of the most time-wasting and expensive things is actually, I've forgotten my password after my holiday, can you reset it for me? Well, that's gone. And you've got unique biometric sign-in ID baked into Windows 10. A fantastic offering. And the last thing I'll show you on more personal computing and also at natural user interface is something that we first showed back in January at our Windows 10 announced then, which is a product called HoloLens. Now, this was the idea of that next leap forward in computing. And to me, it really is science fiction / magic when I first saw this. And I think a lot of tech commentators were a bit skeptical until they got their hands on and eyes wrapped into this thing, and it absolutely blew them away. And we took another step forward with that 2 weeks ago when we announced a product called Project X-Ray. This here is really just showing you what can be achieved, and we're actually now releasing demo kits of this for developers to start building applications on. This is not far away from being a marketable product. So on to productivity, and James did a great job of really setting this up. Our mission around reinventing productivity and business processes. And if you think about this, and it does sound a bit highbrow, but productivity really is the engine of human progress. We get to where we are by being more productive. And if we limit productivity, obviously that limits what we can achieve. And if we reflect how teams work today and some of the comments I made earlier, as dynamic teams aiming towards a shared outcome, they need to collaborate and they need to rapidly iterate ideas and content, stay connected, do it securely, and reach out and connect with customers. And in a world where the most finite resource we have is time, surely Microsoft's got a role to play in how we think about productivity going forward. Now, you can see a great list of products here. Again, as no surprise with the whole Antigen stack, the guys can have and girls can have a great conversation with you about anything on here. I do want to touch on a couple of things on the slide. One of my favourite ones actually is Acompli and Sunrise. Those were, we think about Microsoft going more broadly in the market, they were leading applications for productivity on iOS platform. Microsoft acquired those and now deliver our services through iOS. Now, again, to quote a tech commentator, I think this was from Gizmodo, he said, "I cannot believe that my favourite Gmail app on my iPhone is from Microsoft." And that's the productivity mission that we're trying to lead today. Any platform, any device, we want to be the leading productivity provider there as well. And obviously I don't need to speak to Sarah Online and Dynamics ERP because Antigen have great chops there. So moving on to building the intelligent cloud, of course, all of the experiences that we've shared are powered by cloud platforms. Cloud that provides our customers faster time to value, improved agility, cost reductions, and solutions that differentiate businesses through lots of different things: identity management, rich data management, machine learning, and advanced analytics, as we've spoken about as well. And the great thing about cloud is that, and especially the Microsoft cloud, is you can bring new capabilities into your business without having to retrain IT and re-architect solutions, because it's the platform and the products you already know and love as well. And our cloud is, a little bit different in that we built it for whatever it needs to be for your applications, your data, your devices, your hardware, other clouds that are non-Microsoft, new businesses, whatever. Our cloud is there to provide that for you. Now, Microsoft invests pretty big in cloud as well. We now have 24 different regions around the world where data is stored in Azure. About a year ago, we announced the Sydney and Melbourne data centres. That is our local hub. That's where data for New Zealand mostly resides. And there's a couple of great things about that. All of our regions are geo-redundant, which means that data is stored in Sydney and or in Melbourne, but it's backed up across the both of them all the time. So that if any natural disaster or anything happens to one data centre, it's replicated within the same region as well. And obviously Melbourne and Sydney are very, very far apart. But you can actually choose to provision your cloud anywhere in the world that you want to be closer to your customers if that's what they need. If they want data within a certain geopolitical environment, that can be done through Azure Cloud as well. And for those of you who are a little bit more, want to know some more numbers, we have 2.25 million kilometres of cable connecting all of our data centres as well around the world. So it's a pretty big investment. In fact, I think last count we're up to $15 billion invested, and we are far bigger than both Google and AWS combined in our cloud footprint. And it's not a new business for us. We've been doing this 20-something years since Hotmail first came out. That was cloud computing at its beginning as well. So you've heard a little bit about our mission. You understand at a high level there's 3 strategic pillars. These strategic pillars aren't just product ideas. This is the way our business is organised now. Our big clusters of engineering and development and Microsoft are built around these 3 pillars. This is the way we report to the street under these 3 pillars. Each pillar stands on its own as far as we report our financials. So then how does these things enable systems of intelligence? How do these things enable the Internet of Things? And if you take this picture and then think about those things layer undering horizontally, I guess would be the best way to think about it. You need all of these aspects to enable Internet of Things and systems of intelligence. I said earlier, one of the challenges with Internet of Things is the multitude of definitions of what it is. And here's one from Gartner, which I tend to like and go to all the time, but it is the network of physical objects that contain embedded technology to communicate and interact with their internal states or the external environment. Okay, but I kind of get that, and I think a lot of people thought the Internet of Things was going to be internet-enabled fridges or toasters. We've seen that expand a little bit into pedometers and Fitbits and now wearables, like the band here. But it's a big topic and a big opportunity, so why is it so big? Now, the numbers behind it are pretty staggering, and again, like the definition, no one can really agree what they are. Some research said there'll be 50 billion things connected to the internet. That number rapidly changed to 75. Someone else came along and remeasured it and said, no, it's like 212 billion. Get your facts straight. But the revenue opportunity out there is absolutely massive. So to give an example of what the internet things, and I still think this is one of the coolest things, I apologise if you have heard this before. We used this story globally about 6 or 8 months ago. And it's called the connected cow. Because why shouldn't you hook the cows up to the internet, really? And it came from Japan, and it came with this problem that farmers were having trouble in breeding cows, in that the success rates of insemination weren't fantastic. Now, I'm a farmer, so I'm comfortable talking about animal husbandry. I hope everyone else in the room is as well. And what this came down to was they were trying to think of a way, how do you lift production of cows? And what they realised was that female cows are only in estrus, in a productive mode, every 21 days, and only for a few hours at a time. And they could never get that right. So artificial insemination was the most common way of doing it. But again, you could be a bit hit and miss with your timing of getting the result that you're looking for. So that was the problem that they had. How do we increase production? Now, this Japanese farmer hooked up with Fujitsu in Japan to explore what that could be. Now, I don't know how they joined the dots on this, but they came up with this idea of, let's just whack a pedometer on a cow and see what happens. So what they did, there's a lovely cow with a pedometer, they tracked that data, they exported it off into Microsoft Azure where they just did some data analysis on what the cow was doing. And what they discovered was this, that a normal cow's modus operandi over a couple of days is it's active, it walks around, and this kind of flatlining happens sort of in the evening hours. They way less productive as you'd sleep. They're just walking around very quietly, having a bit of a snooze. But then they noticed something really, really interesting, is that suddenly what would happen is that in times of estrus, when they were coming into being right for insemination and breeding, their behaviour rapidly changed. Prior to, they started walking a lot more, and during the actual period, you'll see that massive spike in their behaviour. So they realised that if you want to actually guarantee insemination of a cow, you need to hit them, excuse the expression, in that spot. That is the time to do it. Further, they also did more data analysis over time and said if you inseminate the cow in the first half of this process, the chances are you'll get male offspring. In the second half, female offspring. So some of those old wives' tales perhaps are true. Now that had massive implications as well, because if you want to breed cows, you kind of don't need so many boys as you do girls. So that farmers could rapidly change their behaviour, reduce their manual monitoring, and furthermore, just by actually looking at the data and saying, well, what else can we do with this? They've now realised that they can actually identify up to 8 different types of diseases the cows may be getting through changes in their behaviour, all through tracking a pedometer. That is what the Internet of Things can empower. So you can imagine the lifts in productivity and gains they have got through pretty much a pretty inexpensive device and pretty much inexpensive cloud computing time. So that's quite incredible. So the question was like, what do you do with the next step with that? When we think back to going back a little bit again about IoT and how we thought about it in 2010, I think everybody really focused on the devices and the things we had. You know, your clocks, your fridge, your cars, and how they could be enabled between your home life and the workplace to be more informed and interacted with. When we think about it today, the Internet of Things is all that, but it's actually creating a whole new categories of sensors and monitors and devices. And perhaps there is no more relevant than health. We just talked about the health of the cow, but many people are wearing devices like this that might track how many steps you take. It might track your heart rate, as a lot of devices do now, how well you sleep, blood pressure can't be far off, or blood sugars, etc., etc. And so now you start talking about the data of me, you know, and when we start crunching large amounts of human data in the cloud with predictive analytics, could science be able to tell us about our risks for different diseases as we get older? It can say, Fraser, if you don't do these things may happen. You know, that is the power that Internet of Things can unleash for us as well. So IoT is an inflection point right now. You know, hardware's cheap, small, connectivity's pervasive. And there is new and innovative scenarios coming to bear all the time, and it doesn't need to be a far-flung idea. Often the devices that you have, the things that you have today and can be enabled, and the systems that you have today can be enabled as well. Just by sitting down and going, what are the problems I want to solve, and how can IoT help me? And then engaging with the likes of Antigen to start having that conversation at a deeper level. So that kind of brings this, and underpinning all this is the systems of intelligence. Clearly, none of these things happen in silos by themselves. They are through a connected platform underneath. It is ERP systems. It is customer-facing in many instances through the web portal apps. It's cloud computing. It's devices. It's systems of intelligence allowing real-time insight and predictive problem-solving at times as well. You understand from now where Microsoft is going, how we see more personal computing, reinventing productivity and building the intelligent cloud, enabling us, enabling our customers and our partners, and the Internet of Things and systems of intelligence underpinning all this as well. And I think we've clearly outlined how we see these things being our driving force at Microsoft to empowering every person and every organisation on the planet to achieve more. The last thing I'll actually touch on is our partnership with Antigen. It is a really, really important partnership for us, and I'd probably call out on the slide here the 5 areas of partnership where Microsoft and Antigen have a unique relationship and how they leverage our technologies to help you, their clients across. The first one, as Simon touched about, and I just referenced in that video as well, is in the top left box there, 98 Seattle and Microsoft projects. So Antigen in North America has delivered 98 projects for Microsoft in the last 12 months, like the ones you just saw. And what the great thing about that is the vision and leadership piece that gives Antigen, that they are at the cutting edge of our technologies at all times. And that's supported by the 6 MVPs, as Simon spoke about as well. James did. That's the ultimate recognition. The number of MVPs in an organisation like this, they are the thought leaders in their field for Microsoft and for the global community as well. Delivering 940 client projects exclusively on the Microsoft stack. Across the Antigen network. And there's no substitute for experience when it comes to helping customers transform on these products and technology. The recognition Antigen's received, certainly the Partner of the Year for CRM and ERP, the Platinum Club, the Preferred Suppliers, and the Partner of the Year status. These are not decisions made lightly, these are decisions made on merit. And Antigen has certainly stacked up and delivered on that year after year. And lastly, the TAP programs. That really is backing up the work that they do with Corp, backing up the MVPs. This is Antigen developing and building on our latest cutting edge technologies and going out and working with you to see how we can help solve your problems better and better. That is the partnership that Microsoft and Antigen hold. And with that, I'd like to say thank you. I'm handing back to James by the looks of things. So thanks very much, everybody. Hope you enjoyed.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Fraser. It's an exciting time to be a Microsoft partner. They've given us a whole host of great toys for us to play with. But they are delivering a whole host of fantastic solutions for us to deliver engaging and intelligent applications for our clients. And hopefully some of those things you're going to see today. So we're going to be running through the AX7, a little sneak peek of some of the pieces that's coming out for that. NAV 2016. And I know the guys have been working really, really hard on pulling all this demos together and trying to bring you an update for that. I want to call out specifically our CRM team. They're not necessarily working any harder than the other teams, but this morning at 7:50, they were given the nod today, exclusively for Dynamics Day, that the NDA for CRM 2016 could be lifted. So it could well be the first public outing of this solution. So you can imagine that put them in a little bit of a tailspin. Everything is now being reorganized. I hope you're okay. Yep, okay, good, thumbs up. So it is an exciting time, and I'm really, really pleased, and just want to say thank you very much to all of the content providers. They're going to bring some great stuff to you. The next thing is to look at an exceptional case study. And with that, really what I want to do is if anyone's not seen the next presenter before, hang on to your seats. what I want to do is to invite Chris Auld. He's the Chief Technology Officer for Antigen. And also to help with Chris step through his presentation, we have Tatiana, who's the CRM practice lead in Seattle. And obviously they are very well connected with Microsoft and well connected with some of these very cool projects that they're delivering. So with that, I want to invite Chris in his loud shirt and Tatiana.
Thanks, James. That audience. Are there any CFOs here? I thought I'd talk to you about, you know, those projects that like go on for years and years and years and years and years? The ones that sort of end up 2 orders of magnitude over the original budget? We're going to talk to you about one of those. So about August 2012, we started a piece of work for Microsoft. Less than 20 grand. A few years later, we're several $1 million in and running what is probably one of the largest dynamic CRM online systems in the world. So we're on a thing called Demand Center. Demand Center is basically the marketing automation platform that drives marketing automation for Microsoft Azure, Intune, Power BI, a number of really, really major Microsoft products. If you've ever signed up for Azure, filled in the forms, been to an Azure event, you may have got some telephone calls. We run the system that drives all of that globally out of, you know, a dozen call centers across how many different languages? Must be 15
I think right
languages.
now it's about 16 different languages.
Yeah, 16 different
globally.
languages. So a pretty interesting project, all built on top of Dynamic CRM. In
Online.
fact, Dynamic CRM Online. And we are pushing the edges of Dynamic CRM Online. So maybe do you want to tell us a little bit more about sort of how it's built, Tatiana?
Absolutely. So today, we started first a couple of years ago with processing about, I would say, maybe 3,000 leads a day. And today, we're creating new 20,000 leads a day in our system every single day.
Anyone do that a month? So you end up with a really big system, right? We're taking a lot of throughput, and it means that you really need to be automating your understanding of your customers, right? Because that's not, even at the scale of Microsoft, that level of new customer add throughput is not amenable to working with real people. You've actually got to target your resources. You've actually got to build some intelligence into the system so that you can work out where you place your big investments. And by big investments, we mean sending people from Fraser's team out to knock on your door and take you out for lunch, right? Because that's obviously the most expensive type of engagement. Through like outbound tele. Who does outbound tele? Right, it's reasonably spendy, yeah? You guys do a lot of outbound tele, right? For any folks, some HRV here at the front. Through outbound tele, and again, targeting who gets tele, right? You know, and what sort of tele do they get? So deeply segmented and customized scripts running there.
And especially tele, if you guys know, it's becoming more and more expensive. So Demand Center main focus is to kind of figure out what leads to target, who we need to call today. So in addition to 20,000 leads a day, we also capture a lot of activities. So for example, for Power BI, if somebody downloads a dashboard, we wanted to communicate or send specific materials to that person in order, to help them to do better. So activities that we capture every day associated to some leads, it's about 50,000 activities. Our system is built on top of Microsoft Dynamics Online and Marketo. Marketo is a marketing automation platform that we use. It was built for enterprise customers. It's very robust, it's very large. And on the back end for tele, we use Power Dialer. So we don't send to Paradollar every single lead, but we send only specific leads that show the most potential for sales.
And that'll take people through an automated script. So we basically queue these up, push them out to the teleservice agents, again, spread around the world, work in 16 different languages, and you just really, you've got to churn this stuff through.
Yeah.
I mean, we think we've got pretty significant uplift in terms of outbound tele throughput by virtue of the level of automation that we've put in.
And we're actually helping our tellies to go through those calls very fast. So today, if I'm not mistaken, we process in about 120 phone calls per person. So one agent is able to go through 120 phone calls, which is pretty good for a call center. On different languages, of course.
In different languages as well. And so, all of this is built around this idea that systems need to be more intelligent to deal with these sorts of volumes of data. Systems need to be more intelligent to be able to capture that extra few percentage points of productivity over the top. We're working to continue to build out the data set that we capture. The Power BI one's a great example.
Yeah.
Because what we're seeing now is actually work within the products themselves to feed back into the marketing automation engine. So as you see, the likes of a Xero or these browser-delivered services, it's really important to think about how does my product become a data feed for my marketing engine? Because my marketing engine isn't about closing sales anymore. Right? And the sale's often really easy these days, right? Because the sale only commits the customer to 1 month. And if you've spent 9 months worth of revenue to capture that one customer, you don't care about the sale. You don't care about the activation. Right? You care that they stick around more than 10 months. Right? And so sales and marketing goes from being purely a customer acquisition to a customer retention problem. Right? And that really does require that you have a far more integrated tie between your product or service, whatever that happens to be, and the systems that you're using to drive and automate that. And certainly with the CSP marketing automation offer that we've made today, those are the sorts of things you want to be thinking about. How can I take that marketing automation platform and tie it into the actual operation, right, of my service or my product to improve the long run, retention and engagement with my customers?
And in addition to those automation, we also capture and manage a lot of marketing initiatives. So in addition to leads coming when you sign up for Azure, Power BI, or even Dynamics, so we just onboarded Dynamics as well. So if you signing up for Dynamics trial, it goes to the Demand Center as well. But we run a lot of marketing webinars for Microsoft and a lot of events as well. And all the leads from those events also go to Demand Center.
And it's all about saying what works, right? The person who can answer the question, prove it, is the one that's going to win moving forward. Right? Because the extent to which you can prove ROI helps you to validate where you're making the right investments and indeed where you're making the wrong investments. And being able to do that really quickly is very, very important. Now, it's actually a whole lot easier to do it really, really quickly when you're doing 20,000 new leads a day than you're doing 20 new leads a day. Right? And that's like stats 101, unfortunately. So, we're going to talk a little bit more about this later on, but, one of the biggest challenges in New Zealand in particular, but certainly in this whole region, is just how we take advantage of some of this automation in low-scale environments. We actually don't have enough of the currency of customer engagement to maybe be as experimental as we'd like to be. So the session later this morning, we're going to talk a bit about systems of experimentation and systems of intelligence, and probably drill a little bit more on this case study and a bunch of others we've done recently. Good to see the Dartmouth Hitchcock stuff up there. We did a really neat wearables project recently for the US Cure Parkinson's Trust. If anyone's familiar, have any friends, relatives who've had Parkinson's disease, it's actually really important for those people to keep active. So we've built a wearables platform that actually helps Parkinson's patients keep active with wearable devices, motivational tools, integrated mobile apps, and so forth. So this stuff does actually make a difference to people. So thanks for coming along today. I'm going to see you all a bit later on, and we'll tell a few more stories. But it's great to have you.
Well done, guys. Thanks, Chris. Okay, have you got the clicker? That's on there, right. So as Chris said, they'll be covering a whole load of detail in later sessions on this, but it's pretty exciting to be involved in such a high profile and obviously exceptionally high volume solution for Microsoft. So just at the final stages now, I just want to wrap up. So first and foremost, to put this sort of event on, there's an immense amount of effort, a little bit of cost. But thanks very much for the help of our sponsors, which really makes it possible to us to deliver the type of content that we're delivering today. Firstly, Microsoft, as ever, a large contingent of the Microsoft team here, and they help bring the message that we need from offshore around where they're going with their product sets. And I also want to say a mention for Experian, Sitecore, and Click Dimensions. A great thank you to them for being able to make this event possible. Now, to the Dynamics Day veterans, which I know there are quite a few of them in the room, we run multiple streams. And we have a CRM, AX, and NAV stream. So the CRM room is here. The AX room is over there as you walk out just slightly to the left. NAV room slightly to the right. If you go too far to the right, you find yourself in a small room with lots of people with green faces. That's the speaker's lounge. Don't go there. But what we're going to do is convene in a minute in here for the CRM session. We've got a 5-minute cut over, so if you need to go to the toilet, please be swift. We really, really value your feedback. It actually helps us shape everything that we do. Last year, we got quite a lot of feedback around being able to talk to our experts a little bit more freely. So we created some sessions, some booths out there where you'll find Ask the Experts. Hopefully the experts will be standing there ready to respond to all of your questions. But it's really important to get your feedback. That helps us shape the Dynamics Days of the future. Just as a little incentive, if you can fill out your form and drop that through to us, be in to win the Microsoft Lumia 640 XL, which is a pretty cool device. Only those who are still standing will be able to win, so we might get a couple of redraws, which got a little raucous last year. And just a final thing, I suspect every single one of you have found the wireless, but if you haven't, the wireless is Rendezvous Conference, and the password is Antigen Dell. And we really do want to hear through social media what you think, and please do use the Dynamics Day hashtag to share your thoughts, share your images of today. But really look forward to actually meeting up with all of you and catching up over the course of the day and over a few drinks later on this evening. So I hope you get value out of today. Lots of people around. If you see someone in a black shirt and you want to go and ask a question, just grab them. And hope you enjoy the conference. Thank you very much.